Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DJ Spotlight here on Disc Jockey News TV. Nvrsoft, thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so stoked to talk to you, especially since I've been following your content for a while now and checked out a few of your interviews, and they're just phenomenal. So hopefully we can get at least as half as good as some of those. So let's hear about your early beginnings. How did that kind of create the building blocks of where you have come today?
My mom's a wonderful musician. She's a pianist. She's featured on a couple of my tunes, on my title tune of my EP. We do a lot of work together. But from a really early age, I remember first we tried piano lessons, but I've had ADHD my whole life, and I had no discipline. As a child, I had all the passion and all the freedom, but none of the discipline. So I didn't really pick up piano, which is a thing that I constantly regret, because now I'm starting to reteach myself piano as I go on and write. But I still picked up, I think I started playing the flute and singing when I was I started singing in elementary school. I picked up the flute when I entered into middle school, and then I continued to sing and play the flute through high school. And then as soon as I got to college, and before that, I started DJing. When I started DJing when I was 16. I still to this day have never owned my own equipment. So I would really just go and practice when I played. And I'd play everywhere. I played everywhere. I played boats, weddings on the back of a pickup truck. I've played in strip clubs. I've played in dive bars. I've played at county fairs. I played literally everywhere that I could get my hands on decks. I would go to the guitar centers and stuff when I was younger, and just play around on their demo deck as much as I could. And I started gigging out, but I really didn't make much of an appearance until I got into college. I was kind of just doing the mainstream thing before then, which I'm really glad I went through, because I ate a lot of shit, and I ate a different type of shit than you eat in the electronic music world. But I learned how to play everything, and I think my classical background and just playing a lot of mainstream stuff before I really got into my rave stuff. I mean, I've been raving since I was really, really young, far too young, but I never really got, started playing out the stuff that I loved the most until I reached college. But then it took several years after that, 8 years into my DJing career, for me to start making music. So it was a really long, pretty much 23-year-old build up at this point.
Yeah, people don't realize that. There's so much history behind these super successful artists. It doesn't just happen overnight. And I love how you admit you're lots of shit sandwiches.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And honestly, my two teachers, my two music teachers in high school and elementary school, Betty Scott in elementary school and Kathleen Vidala during high school, I have so much, I have to thank them for so much, because, they just hammered in the fundamentals of music in a way that was, music, teaching music can, especially to kids, is a hit or miss thing. And it can be it can be a big drag for a kid, like learning all the classical stuff if you're not, sorry, I'm trying to get the glare.
Yeah, no worries.
If you're not really into that as a kid, then you're just not going to pick up on it. But they would teach me how to sight read, and like they would teach fundamentals of just basic song structure things, and like basic chords and like stuff like that God help me, I can never really teach that back, at least not on a technical level that would be acceptable. But they're stuck in my head, like that pattern. Like I didn't need to learn how to build a good chord progression. That was just stuck in from this sounds right, this sounds wrong. And I think training your ear like that takes a long time. So they were really helpful in that, I think. So
I'm glad that you got that. I remember learning for like the recorder way back when I was a kid, and my auntie actually taught me how to read music, and it clicked for a bit, and then I wish I kept practicing it because it was really cool to know how to do that. It sounds like this was like an impactful moment, and I'd love to talk about some impactful moments that stand out to you in your career. Maybe they were lessons, experiences. Maybe you could give us an example or two and why they had such a huge impact on you.
Well, I mean, I guess we could do a positive, a negative, and a positive, I think. So I think a big one early on, let's see, let me search through the biggest thing. I think one of my first gigs, like ever on paper, was opening for Andy C. at U Street Music Hall. And I don't know if you know much about U Street, but it's one of the best and longest running venues in the country. And we have a really good relationship still today. But honestly, I consider my DJing career, at least in the drum and bass world, is starting there. And having that I think that was literally the first, if not the second time my name had been on paper. And that was a really big first, for me. And I remember playing really early, and I turned around, and Andy's hat, really recognizable. And I just remember seeing his hat and my eyes just like darting to the floor. And I still have the card, but I was looking at his shoes, and his hand comes out and with his business card, and he goes, "Someday you're going to write music, and someday you should send it to me." Which is too bad for him because I sent it to him instead. But, but that was a really big, that's like one of those like cheesy starstruck moments that you're not supposed to talk about, I guess. But that was a really big deal for me, just kind of getting through an opening slot at a venue like that for somebody that I had been listening to for as long as I had been listening to electronic music. And then seeing that, he came early. He didn't just walk in 5 or 10 minutes before his set, play, and then, or like chill out in the green room for hours before and not be seen. And I know this is still true of him today because it came out, once when, on one of my rounds to England, I think when he had a night going on, just to see like new talent on the bill, I think that's like a wide characteristic of a lot of the colleagues I have now that, were idols to me, all but, for all, like the past like 10 years. And now I've come to know a lot of the people whose music I've been playing, and they're all really curious in a good way about new people on the radar, which is really inspiring to me. I think the second one, and the negative one that stands out, was something I talked about in the Baltimore Sun, about being bullied behind the decks by some peers, which was pretty frequent and pretty tough. Like I'd be having, these guys yell really, really harsh shit behind my back for the whole hour, and I'd be looking up and I'd be thinking in my head, like, I must stop. But I kept on looking up to see all my friends and a packed floor and to see me doing my job. So, like, it was a big, important lesson that the things people say and the criticism you get is often not reflective of the overall truth and what a lot of people believe. I think, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and like you're going to hear the outliers of your career, the people that hate you the most, they're going to be the most vocal. And they're going to be out there, and you either choose to listen to them like I did for years because I didn't know any better, and those were the supposed, like, kings of the castle in this scene. And then I left. And I think one of the other most impactful things was Larry giving me, basically, he's responsible for everything. Like, everybody asks how, like, this, or I guess, like, my most recent chapter of my career started, and it's because I had like 5 shows, like 5 or 7 shows with Catalogues and TV, with Larry and tour over like the span of a year in America. It was like everywhere. I had a show billed with those guys, and I love them. I love them to death. They're just like me and my best friend Dude. Dude and Tor are really quiet, and Larry and I are like pretty wild. We like the party, really. Like we like to sing on our own stuff, both of us. We like the kind of conceptual stuff. Like, I would say I'm more of a composer than a producer. I'm not as bogged down with the technical stuff, but when I was at a festival, I was at Lazy River, and we were chilling out, and he goes, "Pat, when's your birthday?" I go, "It's August 2nd. And he goes, "That's really funny, because on August 2nd, we'll be playing the main stage at Let It Roll. And I think that you should be there because there's a lot of people that I think you should talk to." And I go, "Yeah, well, as soon as I get, all of that, I'll be right there, Larry." And he goes, "Well, I think I can help." He ended up getting me my ticket and my flight. And that's how I ended up at Let It Roll. And because I was in town for Let It Roll, I got booked the first time in England by XYZ and by Hexagon, who are crews I'm still amazingly tight with to this day. Like, big shout out to them. And then I got invited by my friend Christian, Toronto's Broken, to the Egg for a Viper party. And I met Heron that night. And it was like one of the rare nights where it was the first time I was in a place and I didn't have to play, so I was completely off duty. So it was like one of the rare nights where I could like drink in peace. And I just remember Heron and I just hit it off so well. Like, I can't remember. I haven't laughed that hard in like years. And he asked me for my music. And 6 hours later, they asked me for more. And then by 12 hours, we had a 3 EP deal, and that's how it all began. So, like, I would say the biggest, the most impactful things have been the small things, the amazing things, like being people that you never thought would like your music to like your music, and people who were kind of, like, people like that were figments, almost like they're the gods, like I'm just a little man god, but they're so abstract when you're a listener and you're smaller, but they're just like me. They're just like somebody young, and they wiped away all of the preconceived notions I had about what authorities in the scene would be like, because I had been taught that authorities were competitive. I thought that they were harsh. I thought that it was elitist. I thought that you needed tenure. And then I got out, and the biggest people that I knew, the people whose music I loved the most, were the first people to start playing my tunes. And the people with the longest careers saw something in me, even if I was like I think I was like 8 months into making music, like 8 months, like, or just around a year when I got picked up. So like, I'm still super rough, but they see the potential in me. And yeah, so that's a pretty long answer to your question, but you know, that stuff was really pretty groundbreaking for me.
I love those stories though, and I love that you kind of like throw that positive and negative experience in there, because it's relatable, because so many of us are a lot of the times in our local scenes experiencing that kind of bullying, and especially by what I like to call the gatekeepers. So people that have been in it for a long period of time, and they don't want to lose that spot. So they're like deciding who can and can't. And if you do get up on a lineup and they don't like it, experiences like that happen. I have definitely experienced something similar, and I love the visual that you had of it. It's like you hear these little voices in the background and they're loud, but when you look out into the crowd and you see everybody happy and dancing and vibing, you're like, that's nothing. And then when you talk about these people that see you and your potential, and they're just like you, yet they're so much bigger in the scene. It's like, that is the kind of person I think would like to aspire to be, like that kind of mentor, because they have so much impact. So speaking of impact and mentors, in your opinion, what do you think a great mentor looks like? Maybe an example of somebody that has really had that kind of impact in your career that you look up to.
2 words, yes. Shimon and Heron. So like, you're like, I call Shimon dad at this point. It's pretty funny. It's like Jared's joke. Like, I honestly, like, I was somebody who never wanted to be signed exclusively to a label because of all the horror stories that like my friends and colleagues had gone through. Like, I've just heard a lot of discouraging things about a lot of places, but when they found me, that was like everything opened. Like, they're the kind of people, like when I made history at Fabric, that was how they tested me to see. Like, that night was the night I got signed, because they knew they liked my music. They hadn't seen me play. Okay. So they brought me over for a really big test, which was playing their first label night at Fabric. That was the first time I had ever been to Fabric. So, and then, you know, we had heard little, you know, rumors of that, but we didn't know until, you know, after I played my set, Fabric informed us. And, you know, they didn't do that as a publicity stunt. They did that to throw me in the fire and see if I passed, and I passed. But also, you know, when we did, they were the first people to tell the world, you know, and Fabric was there to back it up. And of course, you know, like, you got like one little naysayer that was like, you know, trying to say something, you know, to say another female DJ had been the first, but she's from England, not from America. And I didn't have to say a thing. I didn't have to say it. Like, it was just like everybody from the label was just like, oh, Matt. Like, I think a good mentor is so much more than just teaching you how to, you know, like answering production questions, or teaching you how to master or shit like that. Like, I have grown into an entirely different artist. I've grown into an artist because of the guidance that they've given me, which I know I'm more high maintenance than probably like anybody on the label, like even without even trying, but they give me that. Like, Aaron is somebody I talk to every day. Shimmy is somebody I talk to like every day, and they know my life. And instead of just trying to get me to crank out the most and the best music, which is obviously important and something that we strive for. They also help me grow in ways that make sure that I can handle it. Because, you know, the trajectory of what's happened to me has been over like a year, and it's been a big jump. And that's a very volatile situation where, you know, you can easily slip through the cracks with all sorts of things. And, you know, they kind of give me everything that I need. And I, now at this point, I have students now, which is crazy. I have 2 or 3 students, and I try to be the same way. Like when, you know, Shim and Heron don't teach me their way. They have my way in mind. They want to preserve me doing it like my own way. They don't want to make some kind of carbon copy of, you know, somebody else's sound or the other artist. Like, you know, like nobody tries to pretend that I'm not American or that I'm not a woman or that I haven't, like, I don't know, I'm somebody that I didn't really have mentors, but I refused to like use things like tutorials and things like that, which are great for some people, like, don't get me wrong, but for me, I got a lot of strength by doing it myself and asking good questions from people that I did trust. Because the thing about mentorship is a lot of people will try and mentor you. Doesn't mean they're always good mentors. There's a lot of advice out there. Doesn't mean that it's right or that it's right for you, you know? So I don't know, like, but I trust that they know me and they have my best interest at heart. So I found my family, and the heads of the family are the best mentors I could ever ask for.
I love that. I love that they're your music family, fam jam. So with all of that success, there's been a lot of traveling, which a lot of DJs are like, yes, I want to travel the world. And then they get down to it and they're like, this is freaking emotionally and physically exhausting. It's a big task and people don't realize it. So I'd love to hear from you when you're in a flow state. What are you doing to create more stability, you know, a safer atmosphere while things can be so chaotic on the road?
So there are a couple things. One, every so often, get yourself an Airbnb. Make sure you have a place where you can take like a bath. I don't know. I found being near water is really mentally and physically rejuvenating for me. So like anywhere you can get in water, like if you're on a long run, get as much time in the water as you can. I also I have some like really petty, but like pretty good little tips that I picked up from Tor. They make in Europe, they have hydration bombs, which are amazing. They're like these like powdered electrolytes and a bunch of like essential nutrients and stuff like that. You can just dump into a half-liter water bottle. It'll save your ass from dehydration. And I hadn't seen those in the States. I picked those up. Those saved me during the heat wave, and I was in Spain, and it was like 150 to 120 degrees that night. It was really, really, and I'm like 110 sopping wet, you know. So like, you gotta make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And one way to, you know, not get tired by travel is to actually do the thing and make travel exciting. Like, don't just go from, you know, if you can, you know, challenge yourself to get out, you know, go see things. You know, you think that it'll make you more tired, but like, it'll expose you to natural sunlight. You'll get clean air. You know, you'll get better food because you're getting locally sourced stuff. It gives you life to, like, there's something about traveling. I think that, you know, like, travel has been cited as one of the, you know, key ways to, you know, lengthen your life and to be happy. And I think it's because it gives you new experiences and new feelings and new memories. It creates new memories for you. And I think that can really help. Also, don't be afraid take Ubers, dude. So like what my strategy is that I Uber, and then when I find a really good driver, I talk them into being my driver in that country. And I get like one or two of them in a country. So after I'm like there the first time, and if I find a good one, then I save a lot of money by just hiring a driver, because I can just pay them for the day, or, you know, they're way cheaper, you know, when you get them off the book, because they're not paying a bunch of fees to, you know, whatever rental company they're doing. And you build up a relationship with somebody. So, you know, like if you get to a level where you're traveling intensely a lot, and you're either in planes or automobiles, like anybody who's successful can tell you that it can be incredibly nerve-wracking, depending on what kind of car you're in. And I kind of minimize that stress and that risk by having somebody reliable that I can just, you know, let them know when I'm going to be in town, and they can tell me when they're on call. And that saves you a lot. And like, your bones will get so tired, especially if you're like in Europe, South America, anywhere, like, you know, but America, really. Like, those are like, you know, real streets, real sidewalks. There are lots of hills and shit, you know, like in America, we're not exactly accustomed to walking and biking everywhere. So it's, you have to pace yourself or you will absolutely crash. And like, I think you're going to crash no matter what. And that's something that you just have to accept it, because it's a big commitment of energy. And like, so like I crashed, like when I got home, I had 3 days off, and then my US date started. So I had 3 days off, 2 of which I was in New York City. 1 I spent at home repacking, then I went to Cincinnati and came back and started school. I was sick for my whole first week of school. And I just had to take the time in and rest. Like, when your body is saying rest, you have to rest. But tour is absolutely exhausting, and it's no picnic. And I think one of the most exhausting things about it is part of your job is making it look amazing and easy.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Is it hilarious? Like, part of your job is to make it look amazing.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're like, I haven't pooped for 3 days because I'm not used to this food.
Dude, I literally ate Heinz beans for like the teal cans, because we don't get those in America.
Yeah.
You know, like the real one. I ate like 2 cans of Heinz beans like for like half of the month I was in England. You know, like, tour's expensive.
Yeah.
You know, especially like if you're in drum and bass, you're not gonna make house money. You know, like, you're just like, we're not gonna get $50,000 paychecks like the dubstep boys. Okay, that just does not happen. You know, we don't get 10K, you know, like, a lot of those guys will sneeze at 10K. That's not the game we're playing, you know? So like, a lot of people do just go in and out because it's so expensive. But, you know, I learned a lot from my first tour, and, you know, like, it's a big financial commitment, and like, it's nothing to be taken lightly, because it will drain you mentally, it'll drain you physically, it'll drain you financially, and you have to prepare for that and embrace it.
Yeah.
Because you can't change that. You know, travel will never be truly cheap. If it's cheap, then you're probably not having a good time. If it's not a little bit mentally draining, then you're probably not pushing yourself enough. At least in my opinion. Like, tour is it's a very special thing. So like, you know, I don't produce when I'm on tour unless I'm in like a studio with somebody. I try and soak up, like, be present in touring and everything that gives me that I can't get, you know, in a studio. But it's also, you know, you don't know how incredibly stressful it is to break your routine. Like, for me, I'm in the studio at least 2 hours a day every day. And so going 4 months without that was a lot. You know, that did a lot to me emotionally, that I thought I was, you know, that I thought I had a grip on, but you don't until until you've experienced it.
Oh, that's such an interesting point, which kind of perfectly leads us into the next question about studio flow. So I would love to hear about your workflow in the studio when you're making music. Is this something Well, I guess you just kind of answer the question. Do you do it on the road? Apparently not. Where do you find yourself?
If I'm really antsy. If I'm really antsy. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, like, I also learned, so I have cloud storage. I have like 2 types of cloud storage. I have my like master 4 terabyte hard drive, and then like 3 backups on backup. So I'll bring a travel 1 or 2 with me. But the thing is that there's some kind of karma about it, man. It's like Tor doesn't want you to do that. Okay? It's like if you're in the studio with somebody, that's cool. Yeah. But Tor doesn't want you sitting around on your ass making music, and it'll show you that in a lot of ways. Like, just like your equipment will break, fucking, shit will get up in there, like you'll get like computer issues, like it's just bad karma. So I just minimize it. If I can, if I get inspiration on the road, like I record, I do a lot of like sample recording when I'm on the road, and stuff like that. A lot of like live sounds and like stuff like that. Cause I'm a heavily sample based person. I sing a lot of my own stuff. I work with my own voice. I love recording things in the natural world and using them. And I mean, when I started playing around, I just always worked a lot with raw audio. Of course, like I kind of saved my sound design and stuff for things that at least at this point, that I'm super comfortable with. Like I tend to always synthesize my pads, my subs almost always, like little bits and bobs and stuff like that. But I'm not one of those people that's like, you have to make it in a VST or it's not real. I don't care. Like I love taking a sample or loop and completely changing it, taking the best out of it, learning what to, really how to max something like that. It's just fun to me. And it's just, I don't know, for some reason it's just intuitive to me, maybe because I'm not so much like a science brain person. And I think, a lot of sound design is just fucking calculus. Okay. And I'm not a calculus person. I was always an algebra and trig person. And, so I just find it easier mentally, I think, to work with audio. But I guess, when I do get in the studio, I go through and I always start with samples first, because I think you can get really bogged down. Like, you can spend your entire session just designing one line. And what I like to do is, like, I have a rule for myself where I don't save the project unless I bang out a full arrangement in the first session, like a skeleton arrangement. Okay. If the tune isn't a full idea, I don't save it, because I found out really early that I never came back to a project that I didn't finish the arrangement. Okay. Ever. I never came back to an incomplete idea. So with incomplete ideas, I break down the parts of it that I like, and I save it, and I've been building up a sample pack out of that. Like, just slowly. So like I have like my own sample pack, because it's just all the shit that I could always come back and make a complete track out of that, but it doesn't take up space on my computer, and it forces me to get an idea, like just new idea and new idea and new idea. Like, I make roundabout a tune at least every session that I sit down. Like,
Oh my God. That's so smart. It saves space, and then you just pick what you like. And I've talked to a few artists about this, but yeah, it's like, if you don't get that emotion down, if you don't get that idea in there, like, will you ever really get back to it? And if you get that idea down and then you go back to it and it creates that emotion for you when listening to it again, you're like, yeah, I'm going to finish this. Yeah. So I gotta really see that shit through. And I'm really not about perfection. Like, I don't care who gets mad at me saying it. I am not impressed by people who sit on Facebook and brag about how much they hate the tune now because of how much time they've spent on it. That's not impressive to me. Okay? Like, I don't care how long I've had a tune. If I like it, I always, like, if it's a favorite of mine, it always will be.
I love my tunes the most. Like, I'm my biggest fan. I almost, obviously, you know, like, I listen to other shit, like, all over the spectrum, but most of the time I listen to my own music to be critical of it and to make sure that it doesn't get old. Like, I don't know. I'm not really impressed by like an EP that's taken a year and a half to make. Like, that's awesome for some people, but for me, like, I'd rather continue to just get ideas out because I can always come back to them. Like, I don't care about something being perfect. The thing is like, you know, the process goes, I write my tunes, I you know, develop them and mix them down to the point where I can test them out in my set. I quick master it, you know, myself. You know, I'm still getting, you know, just practice mastering because I'm still getting, you know, the grips on doing that myself. And there's so much that I want to play out that, you know, I'm not going to have the label do every single, you know, fucking thing, you know, like, that's just not possible. So, you know, I try and practice that myself. And then, you know, then I send them and 9 times out of 10, they get signed. And then when it's ready to schedule, we pick from everything that's on the, you know, on the shelf. And then we take a hard second look at it. And I'm glad that I don't perfect anything because I'm open to criticism from my mentor and somebody that I, you know, he's one of the 3 people that I listen to, like, with like that I really listen to on like things like on like changes. Like, I'm always down to hear people's advice, but I really only take it from certain people, and then we go back and finish the tune. So like, I think a lot of labels are like that. They may sign something, but they'll still want you to possibly make changes. And if you're so set in stone, they're probably not going to want to work with you. A, and B, you know, if you have your ideas set in stone, you're going to have to go through and remix all that shit down, and it's just like you did the first time. So like, I don't know. I'm also young. I'm not trying to like hide and be a producer that I'm not yet. Like, I'm not sub-focused yet. Like, I'm not hybrid mind yet. Like, I'm early in my career, and honestly, I know I'm still going to cherish all of that work, all of that early work that still sounds new. I'm okay with being new. So like, I just try and get out a good vibe that I like, and that, you know, that really motivates me to keep going back to it until I'm done with it. And then I put it down and I just keep going. And at this point, I have over 1,000 dudes that I made in like a year and a half. Like, if I just sat on my ass and did nothing, and, you know, I would have shit to draw back from it for releases for a long time.
Yeah.
You know? So I like that way works for me, I guess.
Watching your journey has been incredibly inspiring, and I really appreciate that you took the time to sit down with us today and share all of your knowledge and experience. I would love to hear about any upcoming exciting projects that are coming to release, or maybe just recently released, events, workshops, anything that you really want people to know about. This will be coming out at the end of September.
Well, I don't have an exact date for the EP yet. We're going to schedule it this week, so I can give you another vocal clip with the exact date. But the EP is coming out super duper soon. My second EP will be called The Hero's Journey. It's dedicated to Joseph Campbell, who wrote the book A Hero with 1,000 Faces, which I really encourage everybody to read. I think it's the single book in college that I love the most. It's changed my life, and it's basically a theory. It's basically a map to how every single great human story goes, and it's creepy how spot on this hero's journey, the cycle that Joseph Campbell created, is to all of our great stories, from the Bible to Star Wars to Harry Potter, and everything in between, to life. And so my tracks mirror some of the stages of that theory. So that'll be coming out. I've got some really cool press that's coming out there, but I'm not going to spoil that yet. I have my homecoming party tomorrow. Well, it'll be in the past by the time this comes out, but I'm really excited to have my welcome home with High Score, which is a great company that I've worked with a long time. And in November, it looks like we've got, I'll be opening for Planet of the Drums in Denver at Cervantes. So that's really cool. And that's all I can think of at the moment that I'm allowed to talk about.
That I'm allowed to talk about. I love that. As a fellow drum and bass DJ and huge fan of these labels and artists that you're talking about, it's just been such a pleasure to get to know you more. For the rest of y'all that are tuned in, what is something that Nvrsoft said today that really stood out to you? Maybe a piece of insight, a story that was relatable. Let us know in the comments below what had impact for you and how you're going to use that to start making changes in your career today. As always, make sure you don't let no one kill your vibes.